Hey Journal Sentinel, Mary Louise asked me to make this video for you guys, and I'll try and keep it really short. But her and I have been having a number of conversations on Facebook over the past few months about the use of social media by journalists, and she asked me to just share a few of the thoughts that I had on that. And I guess just the most important point that I'd like to try to make is that I don't think that social media will really work for journalists unless we're willing to share a little bit about ourselves and our personality. And I know this is a concept that's kind of foreign to journalists, but I don't think that it means that you have to share your deepest and darkest secrets by any means. It does not mean that you have to broadcast your political views or tell who you voted for or even announce to everybody in the world that you just ate a turkey sandwich. But I do think that if you're trying to use Facebook or Twitter or other social media only to provide a link to your stories, it's just not going to work, because people can get that anywhere, and I think they come to social media with a different set of expectations. They want to see that there's kind of a real person who has a personality behind the byline. Things that you might consider sharing could be, your interests. I like to run and ski, so I'm always interested to hear where Tom Held was this weekend at Lapham Peak or what have you. Also, more journalistically speaking, your process of reporting the story, who you talked to, how you verified something, what you're thinking about, what challenges maybe you're wrestling with in reporting or writing a story. We have exciting jobs as journalists, at least compared to some folks. I mean, we're not stuck in a cubicle all day long. We are witnessing history, and there should be some little details that you can share with people that are interesting, and maybe not quite the type of thing you normally include in your story, but might be something that brings it to life a little bit for people. So I guess fundamentally, I don't think that doing this is frivolous or a deviation from our fundamental values. You guys know that I'm a disciple, of course, of Bill Kovach and Tom Rosenstiels, and therefore I'm a big believer in transparency. I think that social media helps us to be more transparent, and that ultimately that really serves the cause of truth and providing better verification for our stories. And we can certainly still keep our political opinions out of there, but still offer something more that helps the reader decide for themselves whether or not they should believe us. Just very, very briefly, since I am a doctor of journalism now, I thought I would just give you just a tiny little bit of information on research that kind of backs up this stuff that I'm saying. Researchers have been studying for a long time now how people interact with computers. And what they found is kind of interesting. They found that unlike a newspaper or a television, the main obvious difference is that on the internet we have interactivity. And because of interactivity, people tend to interact with computers as though they're human beings. We're basically just hot-wired to do that. So we have sort of a social response to participating on the internet, and that leads us to look more for conversation rather than one-way transmission of information. And even before the internet, researchers also found that audiences respond very positively when there's a real person behind the news. A groundbreaking study in 1988, for example, found that audiences view news delivered by TV anchors as more credible than news delivered by newspapers, simply because the newspaper was viewed as a more cold and unfamiliar source. That was done experimentally. So that's kind of an interesting thing. We finally have an opportunity now maybe to catch up with TV in that one area where they were more easily able to capture credibility than we are. There's also some brand new theory and research coming out of Missouri right now showing that news stories that show the reader how ordinary people were involved in reporting and editing the story actually find those stories to be more credible. There's some really interesting stuff, and they're still working on that now, so in the next few months we should see some more really interesting research come out of them. And finally, research and advertising, of all things, not a place where we usually look to for information, but that research shows us that people tend to attribute very positive qualities to businesses that show that they're making an effort, even if it doesn't contribute that much to the quality of the product. People really are always trying to understand the underlying motivation of the person giving them information. And the more sort of open you can be about what your goals are and why you're doing what you're doing, research has kind of shown that you tend to be much more credible and therefore more attractive to the audience.